pain psychologically, kind of off and on consistently, and I haven't been able to figure out how to break free and feel a sense of true harmony internally, true peace. Yes, of course, there's challenges that are going to come our way as human beings, as we continue to grow. But as a baseline, peace and harmony, and they just can't figure out how to get there. What type of application or what do people need to be aware of and then take action on in order to start working towards inner peace and harmony?
Right. Yes, good question. Well, a good entry point is the present moment. That's the present moment is I sometimes call it the portal into that state of consciousness that we call presence or awareness. Now, the egoic mind, as I call it, the egoic mind is not really interested in the present moment, and it usually tries to obscure the present moment. It's interested in some other imagined moment, but not
the past, the future, worry, doubt. Yeah.
Yes, it ignores the present moment, but the first realization is the absolute importance of the present moment in your life. It's the foundation for everything. And your relationship to the present moment determines how the future evolves, what we call future, which, by the way, never arrives, because when it arrives, it's again the present moment.
Yes.
So the realization that all you ever have, all that you can ever experience is intrinsically linked with the present moment. It's inseparable from the present moment. Your entire life unfolds in and as the present moment. That's all there ever is. The past, when the past happened, it was the present moment. It couldn't happen anywhere else. And when you remember the past, you remember it in the present moment.
Right.
The future, when the future comes, when tomorrow comes, it won't be tomorrow anymore. It will be the now. There was a British pub in London I lived in London for many years. They had a sign on the bar that says "Free beer tomorrow." And of course, tomorrow never comes. So the sign is always true.
That's
so
funny.
If you go the next day, say, no, tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. So tomorrow actually never comes. Of course, we need to make plans on a practical level. The future is indispensable. We need it future for us to get together here to talk, to stipulate day and time for connecting. So on a practical level, we cannot do without future. But on a deeper level, on the deeper psychological level, it's important to realize that the future as such does not actually exist, because all you can ever experience or have is the present moment.
Yes.
So that's the starting point. It begins with the realization of the absolute primary importance of the present moment. This is all you ever have. So you might as well have a good relationship with the present moment, because if your relationship with the present moment is dysfunctional, your entire life is dysfunctional.
Right. So how do we, if someone watching or listening is saying, well, my present is really challenging right now.
Yes.
I've got a lot of debt. I feel I've got some sickness in my body and my health is not there. I'm going through a divorce or breakup. The career is not as good as I want it to be. There's some type of pain in the present.
Yeah.
How can I actually enjoy the present when I'm in breakdown everywhere?
Yeah. Let's leave aside for a moment physical pain. It's another story. But the psychological pain that's there is again associated with certain situations. It's associated with your life situation, which may be problematic on some level, whether it's financial or relationship or work situation or living situation. It's or or health situation, it's very likely that at any given time, your life situation will be problematic on at least one of these levels.
Right.
And sometimes it's not one, it's two or three or four, becomes really problematical. You lose all your money, you lose your job, your wife leaves you, or you lose your home. These things do sometimes happen.
Yes.
So you have that, and again, that's usually these life challenges, situational challenges, are usually perceived as being part of the present moment, but they're not really the present moment. They are what I call your life situation. But other than your life situation, you have something that I call your life. Life situation exists in time. Life is now, and never not now. And since your life is now, you have to ask yourself, yes, I have all these problems. I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent, maybe, or my relationship is problem. I'm in the middle of divorce proceedings, all these things that happen to people. Or I've just been let go, or my company has collapsed, or whatever, or it might collapse. Maybe it's doing well, but it may not do well next year. All kinds of things that are perceived as problematic, which sometimes are real and sometimes are just imagination. That again, we need to differentiate between when people say they're having big problems. Sometimes they are just in the mind because they think of things that might go wrong. At other times, they are actually real challenges happening around you.
Right.
But here again, it's to single out the present moment and not to ignore action that you might take or have to take in order to change certain situations. Is there any action that I can take? That's a secondary question. It's important, but it's secondary. Primary question, I often ask people, what problem do you have at this moment? And then they usually start by saying, well, I'm running out of money, or I'm living in this unpleasant this place, whatever. I say, no, running out of money is not this moment, right here and now. What problem do you have here and now, in this moment? And then you look around. Maybe you become aware of that you're breathing, and you look around, and then you reluctantly sometimes people have to admit, well, okay, I'm ready to admit that at just this moment, there isn't actually a problem. The next one there might be, but the next one is again this. Of course, at this moment, you may have a challenge that you immediately need to deal with. If you're going for a walk and you encounter a wild animal coming towards you, you don't say, I don't have any problems at this moment. That's a challenge that you need to deal with, but we wouldn't call it a problem. I mean, I sometimes go for walks in the forest, and occasionally there are bears here. So if you encounter a bear, that is not a problem. It's a challenge, and you deal with it. Either you run away or you don't. Whatever you do, you deal with it. The problem lives in the mind. To get out of that is to give much more attention to the present moment and realize that in the present moment, the problem cannot survive.
Say that one more time. In the present moment,
any problem you have cannot survive in the present moment, because problem is a burden that you carry in your mind, your mental emotional field. That's what a problem is. The rest is situations and circumstances. Either you leave them alone if there's nothing you can do, or you take some action. But they're not a problem. Either you act or you don't act. And if you don't act, you take your attention into the present moment and see that it's actually okay.
Right.
And I often get correspondence from people in prison. They're in prison, and through my foundation, we are sending thousands of books to prisons and so and for prisoners to read. I often get communication. People realize that in their prison cell, they realize that actually I have no problem. In other words, they come to a complete alignment with the present moment. There's no longer an entity that says this should not be happening, because that's where the suffering arises. And of course, prison is a situation where you probably can't take much action, where you can try to escape, but you probably won't succeed.
Right. You've got to accept and surrender.
Yes. So there's always the action may need to be taken, but if no action is possible, then you come to a place of surrender. But it's positive surrender, not negative surrender. Positive surrender is an uncompromising yes to the present moment, an uncompromising yes to what is. That is a place of great inner power that arises with, yes, this is what is. That's the starting point. So you're not arguing with the isness of things, because that's insane. You cannot argue with what is. And that this constant arguing with what is, this actually amplifies the ego, the egoic consciousness. The ego loves to argue with what is. It needs to. It loves enemies. And the ego makes the present moment into an enemy.
All right.
Can you see how insane that is? You make the present moment into your enemy, because that's all you ever have. That means you make your whole life into an enemy, because your whole life is the present moment.
Right.
So I sometimes say, make the present moment your friend, not your enemy. Make the present moment your friend. Then your whole life begins to change. Because what we call future is just an extension of your state of consciousness in the present moment. So if your state of consciousness is negative, it is very likely that you will experience much more negativity in the so-called future.
Right.
If the present moment, if you're in the present moment, you're in a place of acceptance, of positive acceptance, then it's very likely that the so-called future, I always say so-called future, because the future as such doesn't exist. It's always, when it comes, it's a now.
Yes.
So the so-called future reflects your state of consciousness in the present moment. So that's really a very important realization. So that is how the absolute importance of your state of consciousness here and now. What is your state of consciousness now? Rather than thinking that something else is more important than my state of consciousness. So in any situation, you're faced with any situation, what is the state of consciousness with which you face the situation? Are you in a state of resistance or negativity towards the situation? Because when in any endeavor that you undertake, inevitably obstacles will arise in anything.
Yes.
You want to create something new. Obstacles come in many forms, sometimes in the form of human beings who don't like you to do what you're doing, or it can come in the form of other structures that are in society, the rigid structures. So, and you get all kinds of bureaucratic obstacles or whatever the obstacles are. So how do you face an obstacle? What is your state of consciousness when an obstacle arises? Do you immediately become angry? Do you become despondent? Or do you start complaining in your mind about people and talking about others, how awful this situation is, and complaining? Or are you able to just immediately say, this is what is? So you face the obstacle, not in a state of resistance, come from a state of power. This is what is. And then when you're in that state of presence, very often a right action arises spontaneously. Then you find yourself doing the right thing because you're not making the situation into an enemy. And this is very important. If you want to achieve great things, and a huge obstacle for people is to uh, start complaining and building up stress when things go wrong. In other words, things shouldn't be happening. So they become
Right.
negative. They become unpleasant. They become unpleasant to people, colleagues and people they work with. And a lot of negative energy can build up in a company and so on. And that is not some of the most effective people in this world. There are perhaps a few. They don't work with negativity. They work immediately with a positive attitude.
Yes.
They don't make the present moment into an enemy. They might never have heard any spiritual teaching, so perhaps that is some kind of innate wisdom that they have, or maybe they've learned this lesson in a past lifetime. Who knows? So,
Yeah.
so the important is always start with the present moment, and again, what problem do I have now? Is there a problem here and now, just this moment?